The laughter hit her before the words did. Sharp, mocking, the kind that crawls under your skin and stays there. Second Lieutenant Amara Hussein stood perfectly still in the briefing room, spine straight, chin level, while Private Davis pointed a finger inches from her face and mimicked the way she rolled her R's. Behind her, a colonel watched with his arms crossed, saying nothing. And on the desk beside them, hidden inside a worn black folder, sat the one thing that would silence the entire room. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Amara had known transfers were hard. She hadn't expected this. 3 weeks into her assignment at the training command, and already the whispers followed her down hallways. Foreign, soft, doesn't belong here. She'd heard variations of it her whole career, ever since she'd enlisted at 19 with an accent she'd carried from a childhood split between 2 countries. She'd told herself, back then, that the uniform would speak louder than her voice ever could. Some days she still believed that. Today was not one of those days. Davis leaned closer, grinning at his friend Miller, who laughed so hard he had to steady himself against the wall. Say it again, Davis taunted. Say soldier again. Come on. The room smelled of floor polish and old coffee, sunlight cutting hard lines through dusty blinds. Somewhere a clock ticked, indifferent to the cruelty unfolding beneath it. Amara felt her pulse in her throat. Her hands, clasped behind her back in perfect parade rest, trembled. Just slightly. Just enough that only she could feel it. She thought about saying nothing. She thought about walking out. She thought, for one bitter second, about quitting altogether, about how much easier civilian life would be, where nobody dissected her vowels like evidence against her. But then she thought of the desert, of nights so cold her breath turned to frost inside her own helmet, and days so hot the sand seemed to boil. She thought of the men she'd carried, literally carried, across 200 meters of open ground while rounds chewed up the dirt behind them. She had earned her place in rooms like this one. She just hadn't expected to need proof. Colonel Reynolds, the silver-haired officer standing motionless near the back, finally uncrossed his arms. He hadn't laughed. He hadn't intervened either. Not yet. He was watching, the way good commanders watch, gathering more than the room realized. His eyes moved from Davis's mocking grin to Amara's controlled, burning silence. Something in his expression hardened. It was Hudson, near the back, who first noticed the folder. Black, slightly worn at the corners, resting on the desk beside the morning's paperwork. He'd grabbed it without thinking, meaning only to move it aside, but the cover had already fallen open. The room didn't go quiet all at once. It went quiet in pieces. First Hudson, who stopped mid-laugh, eyes locked on the page. Then Miller, glancing over his shoulder, his grin faltering like a candle starved of air. Then Davis himself, still pointing, still smirking, until he followed their stares and saw it too. Combat record. Operation Enduring Freedom. 2 tours. Beneath it, in small disciplined print, awarded, Bronze Star Medal. Purple Heart. The folder sat open beneath the fluorescent light, and dust drifted lazily through a beam of sun cutting across the desk, as if even the room itself needed a moment to absorb what it was looking at. Davis's hand, still raised mid-mockery, slowly dropped to his side. Nobody breathed. The clock kept ticking, but nobody heard it anymore. This was the moment the audience had been waiting for, and yet it wasn't triumphant. It was something heavier. Because here was the uncomfortable truth nobody wanted to sit with. How many soldiers, how many people, walk through life being underestimated for the sound of their voice, the color of their skin, the shape of their name, never given the chance to prove what they've already proven? Should Amara even have to produce a record to earn basic respect? Some would say no one should need medals to deserve dignity. Others would say the room finally saw her, and that mattered too. Both things, somehow, were true at once. Colonel Reynolds stepped forward now, his boots striking the tile in slow, deliberate rhythm, like a verdict being read one footstep at a time. Lieutenant Hussein, he said, his voice carrying easily across the stunned silence, led a rescue extraction under direct fire. Carried 2 wounded soldiers across open terrain. Refused medevac for herself until her men were secured. He let that settle. She didn't earn that accent overseas, gentlemen. She earned everything else. Davis's face had drained of color. Miller wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. And Amara simply stood there, the same way she had through the mockery, through the silence, through every room that had ever doubted her. Only now, her trembling hands had stilled. Nobody clapped. Nobody needed to. The stillness itself was the applause, heavier, more honest than noise could ever be. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back. And so does truth. The morning sun still cut through those dusty blinds the same way it had at the very beginning, but the room had changed entirely. The accent that once invited laughter now carried the weight of 2 tours, a bronze star, and a heart that had bled for people who hadn't yet learned to see her. If this story moved you, tell us below what you would have done in that room. And if stories like this remind you that courage often wears an unfamiliar voice, subscribe. There's more waiting for you here.